Wexit is evolving more than rhetoric. It's now mapping routes and drawing battle lines. What's real? What's posturing? And where this could go from here? I'm Amber. This is Unlocking Canada. Let's go deep. First, why we are back here. Wexit, the separatist or strong autonomy push for Alberta and Western discontent broadly was largely fringe talk a few years ago. The federal attempt, the Maverick Party, has been deregistered. Today, the energy is provincial, petition-based, fight over rules, legal challenges, and messaging. The terrain of that fight is shifting, and that may matter most. One of the biggest structural shift, Bill 54, passed as the Election Statutes Amendment Act 2025. Royal assent on May 15, 2025. The move, it lowers the threshold for citizen-led petitions to trigger referendum from 20% of all eligible voters to 10% of votes cast in the last general election. That's pretty low. Also, petitioners now have 120 days instead of 90 to gather signatures. Crucially, the bill includes a non-derogation clause intended to block referendum questions from being interpreted to override Indigenous rights. That clause covers only the Referendum Act. It does not necessarily extend to every law or citizen initiative framework. Paths to a vote are slightly easier, but the fight shifts to how that vote is framed, regulated, and resisted. Enter a new flashpoint: Trump foreign interference and Smith's pushback. At the recent US-Canada summit in Toronto, Premier Danielle Smith took aim at recent comments by Donald Trump, including his suggestion of making Canada a 51st state. That's bold coming from Smith. She was direct. I don't want any foreign interference in our politics here. Smith rejected Trump's intrusion into Alberta's internal debates. She said she wants any referendum vote to be a yes to staying in Canada, though she admitted, I cannot control the emotions of Albertans. In her remarks, she linked this back to her engagement strategy with Ottawa. She praised Prime Minister Mark Carney for shifting tone, speaking what she called Trump's love language in terms of energy resources and American export demand. I never thought elbows up was going to get us to a deal. Carney is beginning to see putting some credit in the bank account is going to get us a lot further. On trade retaliation, she drew a line. She does not support halting energy exports to the US in response to tariffs, warning that doing so would hurt both Alberta and national interests. She is trying to thread a needle, reject foreign influence, maintain a hard stance on Alberta's grievances, but avoid action that fracture Canada. Before we go any further, please like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Subscribing to my channel is not going to cost you anything, but it does help me big time. Thank you. Now back to our topic. Now, the petition landscape. How this becomes more than talk. One initiative, Forever Canadian, launched by Thomas Lukaszuk and others, its goal? Force a referendum that asks Albertans, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? The application was approved June 30th, 2025. As of early October, they have gathered 230,000 signatures, still short of the 294,000 required under the old rules. But here is a twist, because the application was filed before Bill 54 took effect. It remains under the old rules, so it must satisfy the stricter threshold and shorter timeline. Meanwhile, pro-separatist groups are lining up. Under Bill 54, they see new opportunities to file counter petitions or challenges. Smith has publicly floated holding the referendum in 2026 if the petition threshold is met. She claims she does not personally support separation, but wants to respect a citizen-led process. Should Ottawa continue to attack our provinces? Ultimately, that will be for Albertans to decide. She also said part of her job is to convince Albertans that Canada can work even as she pushes Ottawa to change policies. Let's zoom out and talk constraints and resistance, constitution and legal guardrails. According to Clarity Act, a province cannot simply secede unilaterally. A referendum needs a clear question. A clear majority then must lead into negotiations with Ottawa. The legal and constitutional processes are heavy. Separation is not a light switch. Treaty and Indigenous rights. Indigenous nations have strongly opposed unilateral referendum that could override or ignore their treaty rights. The non-derogation clause helps, but it may be contested or limited in scope. Public opinion. While separatist sentiments have grown, Remain in Canada positions still dominate in many polls. When Trump enters the discourse with 51st state talk, it has the effect of shifting debate, but does not necessarily galvanize majorities. Some polls suggest as many as 36% of Albertans support separation under current conditions. Economic and institutional ties. Alberta is integrated with Canada's economy, infrastructure, resource pipelines, fiscal transfers, trade. Breaking away or even threatening to introduces huge uncertainty for business, investment, and credit. Political risk and backlash. A failed referendum could backfire on Smith or her party. If rhetoric becomes extreme, she risks alienating moderates. Ottawa and other provinces are not idle. They will push back hard with legal, political, and media response. Internal contradictions. Smith says she does not support separatism personally, but she is creating a path for it. That can be perceived as political posturing. Threaten to leave, so you negotiate harder. Her rejection of foreign interference must coexist with her engagement with Trump's rhetoric and US-Canada energy diplomacy. So, what to watch in the weeks and months ahead? Will Forever Canadian hit its signature threshold under the old rules? Will the provincial government accept or reject the petition's wording? Will separatist groups file theirs under Bill 54 and push court challenges? How will First Nation and Indigenous legal bodies respond or sue? What actions will Ottawa and federal courts take? Either they block or regulate a referendum. Whether separation becomes a campaign flashpoint in the next provincial or federal election. How Smith frames her messaging. Whether she leans into pressure, retreats, or pivots. Whether Trump or foreign figures escalate rhetoric and push deeper interference, and how Smith or Canada will respond. Let me be very clear. Wexit is not dead. It's evolving. Danielle Smith's maneuvering reveals exactly what's at play. She draws a line against foreign interference, pushing back on Trump while engaging with US energy leverage. She's stoking a procedural path to referendum, while claiming she does not want to lead separation itself. She's trying to use separation as a lever, not an endpoint, a tool to force Ottawa to concede. But this is a high-stakes game. The legal, constitutional, economic, and political barriers are real. Separation remains unlikely. The fight now is whether this becomes so politically powerful that even if it fails, it reshapes the federation. If you want, next time, I will walk through possible referendum questions, legal challenges in court, and worst case and best case scenario forecasting. Click subscribe because this is not going to fade. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.